Matthew chapter 12. We since it is a long chapter, we're probably going to break it up. Hopefully that's okay with everybody, because I don't want to feel like we have to rush through it to get to the end. So we can break this up depending on how the time goes. All right. All right. We have 12, verse 1, and let's do verse 1.
At that time, Jesus went on the Sabbath day through the corn, and his disciples were hungry, and began to pluck the ears of corn and to eat.
All right. This is a big one that a lot of people use, throw away the Sabbath. So if you ever ran into this, you're going to run into it when you deal with people. All right. So they're on, it's the Sabbath day, and they're going through the corn. All right. And his disciples were hungry, and they began to pluck the ears of corn and to eat. Okay. Now what happens? Verse 2.
But when the Pharisees saw it, they said unto him, Behold, thy disciples do that which is not lawful to do upon the Sabbath day.
All right. So what's happening? What's happening in these first two verses? Somebody break down what's happening in these first two verses.
The Pharisees are accusing the disciples like doing work, but they're just getting food that they need at the time.
Mm-hmm. All right. And he gave me a little more. I like that. All right. So they're going, like I said, they're walking. They walk through the corn. They got hungry. Corn's right there. He pick it, start eating it. And he said, Zion, we're down good. The Pharisees saw it and said, you know what y'all doing? Y'all eating that corn and everything. Y'all breaking the Sabbath. Now, looking at this, what's the true issue? Are they breaking the Sabbath?
Absolutely not. Oh, sorry.
Okay. No problem. All right. We got a no. Sean? Sean, you're on mute.
Oh, no, it was breaking Sabbath.
Okay. You got his no as well. All right. Elder, you had something to add to it?
No. I was agreeing with Sean. I said, no, they're not breaking the Sabbath.
But how weren't they breaking the Sabbath? Why the Pharisees be, what do they accuse them of? They say they're doing what's not lawful. So what law are they implying with that they're breaking? Sean, go ahead.
Well, they're talking about unlawful because they're talking about the traditions of the elders, the traditions of men that they've been adding to the law. That's what they're talking about, which is not law, which is not the law of God. So, and then you can just go to Mark 7 and see what it's like. We talking about when it says, I'm going to start at verse 6, Mark 7 and 6. It says, he answered and said unto them, well, hath Isaiah prophet prophesied of you hypocrites. See, these Pharisees are hypocrites. As is written, these people shall honor me with their lips, but not with their hearts is far from me. Verse 7 says, howbeit in vain do they worship me, teaching for doctrines, commandments of men. So they're talking about the commandments of men, not the commandments of the law of God. Because it's not wrong to do good on the Sabbath, or if you're hungry to eat.
All right, so I'm gonna throw a little curveball. No, I think Elder had his hand up. Then I'll throw a little curveball in. Go ahead, Elder.
Yeah, it wasn't considered work what they were doing, because if you know what plucking the ears of corn are, you're just moving the leaves and pulling the corn off. You're not physically putting the gleaner to the corn and chopping it down, which is physical work.
Okay. I like it. I think Lloyd had his hand up.
That's where I was gonna go. Shalom, family. But yep, he called it.
It wasn't physical. It wasn't physical work.
Well, I was gonna say because of the nature of you getting corn off of the stalk, they would try to consider that work. And like you said, they weren't gleaning the field. It was just them yanking the corn and pulling it.
Okay. Some people that might not know about the gleaning. What's the gleaning the field? Why y'all making a difference from what the the disciples were doing compared to gleaning the field? Give clarity, just in case somebody don't understand.
Gleaning is when you getting up the last, from my understanding, is when you're getting up the last of picking up what's on the floor and getting up the very last of what's left from all the work, clearing out the field and then picking up what's left.
Elder, you had your hand up?
Yeah, it required you to lay the sickle to it, which is their modern day it has a hook on it. And some people have seen it because during Halloween people have it, like the Grim Reaper has it when it's a physical laboring part. But even if they were doing that, you're supposed to leave some handfuls of purpose anyway behind. But they were just walking through the ears or up, and they were just walking through. If you know what they just pull the leaves. Most people who've been in the field, you pull the ear back and you just move your finger and the corn comes right off. It's not physical like gleaning, like actually laying the sickle to the corn.
Okay. Sister Val?
Yeah, hi. It wasn't like they were cooking or preparing it.
Okay. That's
which would be work.
All right. Peace, brother. I think that's a brother using an iPhone. Yes, that's another big aspect where people try to say, see, Christ had them breaking the Sabbath. All right. So the big thing is Christ had to walk on this earth sinless, right? So he can't be over there sinning. All right. So we know he wasn't just breaking the Sabbath because that will go against his whole thing of what he's supposed to do. All right. So we know these things. This is why we have to make the scriptures harmonized. We have to make sure they fit correctly. And everybody collectively was saying great things, definitely on the money. A trap we don't want to fall into is I know Elder meant you talk about the sickle and everything. Somebody don't have to have a sickle and still could have been doing something different. It could still be considered work. All right. But the reference of it is even with gleaning, the gleaning was after what our laws and everything would do. If we had a big old cornfield, we will, the person will pick the good corn and everything, but you won't pick every single ear of corn, right? Because you got like 4 or 5 on one stalk. So you'll pick a lot and then you'll leave some over. So sometimes the strangers or people that's less fortunate, they will come and sometimes collect what was left over. Now the difference from collecting the corn left over and what's happening here, what's the difference? Or do we see a difference? Because somebody gonna come and say, see, it will work.
Ask that question again.
No, it's not.
Oh, go ahead, sorry.
Let me ask him real quick and then I have Elder go. So we have gleaning. We talk about the gleaning, and that's considered work and what they would. So what's the difference between gleaning and what the disciples were doing right here? Or is there a difference? All right. Or is there a difference? All right.
You can go ahead, Elder.
Okay.
Yeah, there's a difference because when Ruth was there, not Ruth, but her daughter, Naomi, she actually just had to pick up the handfuls of purpose is what they called it. It was already done. Everything was already done.
I'm looking for a little more.
It seems to me that it was still a field of corn.
The abundance, yes. So y'all saying it right. So I want to know, when you're gleaning everything, you're gleaning to what? you're collecting. You're getting quite a few to go and take with you, home or whatever you're gonna do, right? With this one, the disciples were hungry and they were just grabbing one to satisfy their need at that time. Okay, so I just want to show there's two different things. Now they were just going there collecting corn. No, they shouldn't have been doing that. But they were grabbing, one to eat right then and there, just like it's an apple tree. We hungry and we see the apple tree or something like that. We'll grab an apple. Different from that and gleaning. Gleaning, we have our basket with us and we put a couple in there. That's not what they were doing. All right, that would be considered work. Okay, but they was grabbing some because they were hungry, and the disciples seen that saying, "Listen, y'all doing which is not lawful." Okay. Anybody else got anything for one or two?
Yeah, I'm not trying to go sidetrack, but we can eat the corn raw like that.
If you want.
Yes.
We want to either barbecue it or boil it or something. Put some butter on it, but I didn't know we could do it like that. Cool.
Mm-hmm. No, you can eat it like that. It's sweet when you get it natural, not like the store brought corn and stuff. Like when you have it naturally, it has a certain sweetness to it as well.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah, and that's another point we said. They didn't go home and start cooking. Like the vow said, they didn't go home and start cooking the corn. That'd have been touching the law, right? So just said they plucked it and they eating it. Mm-hmm. Anybody else? Move on. All right. Verse 3.
But he said unto them, have ye not read what David did when he was a hungered, and they that were with him? How he entered into the house of God and did eat the shewbread, which was not lawful for him to eat, neither for them which were with him, but only for the priest.
All right. So now Christ is referring to something that happened already, right? He's referring to a David. He's telling them, have you not read what David did when he was hungry and they that were with him? All right. And it says they entered into the house of God and did eat the shewbread. So David ate shewbread and it was not lawful for him to eat, meaning it was not for him to eat. It was not appointed for him to eat that. Neither for them which were with them, but only for the priest. So there was shewbread made that was only set up for the priest. So we need to go with David and see the account, all right? Because Christ is referencing this. So we need to go and see the account. Where's the account at?
1 Samuel 21, 1-6.
All right. 1 Samuel 21. This is good when we see something that somebody say it is written or whatever. It's always a good practice to go to what they're talking about, because a lot of times you can get a little more out of it sometimes, or you get the proper understanding of what they're dealing with, all right? The context of it. So we said 1 Samuel 21. I think the point is at verse 6, but we can read up to it. All right, let's start from verse 1. So this is 1 Samuel 21. We'll start at verse 1.
Then came David to Nob, to Ahimelech the priest. And Ahimelech was afraid at the meeting of David and said unto him, Why art thou alone and no man with thee?
So he's like, David, why are you alone? So he's going to the priest, to Ahimelech, all right? So he said, why art thou alone, no man with you? Why are you by yourself? Read.
And David said unto Ahimelech the priest, The king hath commanded me a business, and hath said unto me, Let no man know anything of the business whereabout I send thee, and what I have commanded thee, and I have appointed my servants to such and such a place.
Mm-hmm.
Now therefore, what is under thine hand? Give me 5 loaves of bread in my hand, or what there is present.
All right. So David's asking for something, saying, what's under your hand? In reference, what's under your authority, what you have, okay? And he said, give me 5 loaves in my hand. Give me this bread to eat, or whatever there is present. Now, this is no, I won't get to that. Go to the next verse. I won't even ask it yet.
The priest answered David and said, there is no common bread under my hand, but there is hollow bread, if the young men had kept themselves at least from women.
All right. So this stuff is, what's the hollow bread called? Also called?
Shoe bread.
All right. The shoe bread. All right. So this is what Christ is talking about. What was David? What was he asking for? This is very important. What was he asking for? Was he asking for the shoe bread?
Common bread, 5 loaves.
Okay. So this is why we have to go to the story. David was not trying to break the law. He understood that the priests have their bread. He was not asking for the shoe bread. He was asking for something to eat. He said, just give me regular bread, whatever you got. Can I have it? I'm hungry. Right? What did the priest responded and said, I don't have no common bread. Meaning, if there was common bread here, I will give it to you. I will not give you this shoe bread because this is just for us. But he said, since I don't have no common bread, I'll give you this hollow bread. But I'm not just going to give it to anybody. It's going to be for those that kept themselves from women. All right. So even with that, they still put a stipulation with it because this is sanctified, is hallowed and sanctified, set apart. So not just, even though it's for the priest, just not any person, even though we're going to, let y'all eat it, not anybody can do it. Whoever kept themselves away from women 3 days. Okay. Read.
And David answered the priest and said unto him, of a truth, women have been kept from us about these 3 days since I came out, and the vessels of the young men are holy, and the bread is in the manner common. Yeah, though it were sanctified this day in the vessel.
Next verse. So
the priest gave him hollow bread, for there was no bread there but the shoe bread that was taken from before the Lord, to put hot bread in the day when it was taken away.
All right. So because they had no other bread, this is what I'm making a point. It was no other bread there, and that's why he gave them the shoe bread. Even though technically, according to the law, it was not for them to eat. Okay. And this is the important thing to understand. We move forward. Go ahead, Brother Lloyd. We're going to go back to Matthew 12.
So I've heard someone use this, just as you're saying, and there are stipulations I hear that are according to this, but I've heard someone use this as, if there's nothing else to eat, then God said that it's okay. So that goes against, so they were using that to go against the dietary law.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, people always find something. That's one thing. If you telling me that the only thing around is unclean stuff, that's going to be between you and God. I don't think there's ever a place where it's just unclean things. I think sometimes that's a cop-out, but you can tell the person, because there's usually ain't no spot where you just can't eat nothing. I mean, there's just, I mean, you can eat herbs. You don't even have to eat meat. So that you don't see that they try to do that. They know that wasn't even optional of eating something unclean. So, but yeah, I mean, people use all kinds of scenarios. What about you're at an island and there's only pigs around and you're starving to death? You know, what you going to do there? Are you just going to starve to death? First of all, if Most High put you in that island where there's pigs around, you probably already did something contrary. You probably already done anyway. You know, this is why it says, it talks about in the script, I think we read it last night, avoid certain foolish questions and unlearned questions. We're not even entertaining that kind of stuff. You just want to find an excuse that, you want to eat that. Go ahead. If you want to do it, go ahead. But this was a thing of hunger, and they were trying to get it, and this wasn't, there's a dietary law. So it was showing a need. And this is where we talk about the understanding of the law, okay? Because there's still certain things in the law, all right? There's still little mercies and things in the law. And this is why we say get an understanding of the intent. It wasn't talking about, it is not for the shoe bread, but what's happening? Why is David hungry? Anybody know? why he's asking for this shewbread and all this stuff? What's happening at this time?
David was on the run from Saul.
Okay.
Here we go.
Sorry, Kai, go ahead.
So you tell them when they because people are like, oh yeah, see what David did. Okay, go through what David is. Go on the run for your life, and then maybe you can have this scenario. But he understood the Lord would still direct him there because who's the shewbread belong to? The Most High. He the one who sanctified and said this for the priest. But he also touched the priest saying, nope, give it to them. So with this situation, he's running from it. It ain't no, you know what, I'm walking in the field and I'm hungry. Priest, can I get some shewbread? That ain't what happened here. He's running away, and this was a need. All right. It's not a want. This is not no certain situation. Okay. So when we go here, he's making this situation. How is it related to his part with the corn? Why do you use this one to relate to the corn? Or is there any relevance to it? Why did he use this story of the shewbread going back with plucking the ears of corn? Like, why would Christ use that? What that got to do with what he's doing? Go ahead, Elder. I see you got off from mute. Changed his mind.
The semblance is that, there was no work there, and even though the shewbread was for the priest, he still was able to do something based on what he understood to be truth. There's no difference in the two in terms of similarity, to show people that there's a way to do things as well. In other words, that was available based on them, what they were doing at that time. And he was showing that, it wasn't unlawful for what he was doing.
Okay, I get what you're saying. All right. Anybody else?
I had another question, not trying to backtrack, but as far as when the priest said that they had to be kept from women for 3 days, why was that symbolic? Why was that a prerequisite for the shewbread?
Put a standard in there because it was sanctified, it was holy, separated. He also understood that, listen, even though it's just for the priest, it's still holy bread. We still got to pertain to it a certain way, right, and take it in. So the relevance to it, only one I can think of top of my head is, remember when they went to get the commandments, when they're supposed to be approaching before God, he told them, don't go at your wives for 3 days. That's the other thing. So it's something with it. Now, if you ask me to break down why 3 days was what, right now, I can't say Most High revealed exactly why, but it was a form of, separated, maybe because the carnality or whatever. He used the 3 days and saying, I don't want you messing with him for 3 days, and the priest, the spirit revealing that to him and probably said, listen, we still want to put a little stipulation on it because this is still some, serious. You taking the shewbread. So he put that out there for that. All I can say is the spirit must have revealed, must have told him at least, put that in as a stipulation. All right. Because this is still something sanctified, something not take lightly and eat, that thing. So, all right. So when we look at it, have you not read what David did? He was a hunger, and they that were with him. Why are you making the comparison? Because who's hungry? Him and his disciples, right? I want y'all to catch it. David had who with him? Who did David have with him?
His men.
All right. He had men, he had disciples, he had followers, he had his troops with him. So this is why he's bringing it, because the disciples are blaming Christ and his disciples for doing something contrary to law. He grabbed David. Why grab David? Because everybody loves David. David got the heart of God. Do you think the Pharisees was blaming David or coming at David for what he did here? I want y'all to think about it. Do you think they persecute David for what happened here?
No.
They understood. They knew. This is why Christ is a genius when it comes to this teaching. He used something that he know they wouldn't have said nothing with. They had no problem, and they probably talked about it. He's saying, listen, have you not read? Because he know you read it. I know you read what David did and his people that were hungry, that were with him. How he entered into the house of God and did eat shewbread. How he came into the house of God and he ate something that they was not supposed to eat, being that they were not priests. Okay. Now he's about to go into another one. All right. So that was a question mark, right? You know what he did. Verse 5.
Or have ye not read in the law how that on the Sabbath days the priests in the temple profane the Sabbath and are blameless?
All right. Anybody know what that's dealing with? Now he's touching home. He's saying priest now. All right. Read in the law. So it's something in the law that he is verifying. Have you not read it? How that on the Sabbath days, plural with an S, the priests in the temple profane the Sabbath. How are they profaning the Sabbath? All right, Brother Sean.
Okay.
Yeah, because still the priests still had work to do on the Sabbath days. Like, I believe like they still had to do their work in there, and plus, I think they did sacrifices still on them days. But even though it was a Sabbath day, no Shabbat work, but these priests had to do this work continually. There was no days off for the priests. So even though, you know what I mean, they did kind of, like it says, they did profane the Sabbath, but they were blameless because, remember, they were the Lord's portion.
Let's go to Numbers 28. Brother Sean make a great point. And I understand the Lord's portion. We're going to touch on that too. Kai, you had something?
No. I was just going to break it down like that.
Okay. All right. So Numbers 28. This is go back with what Sean was talking about with the priests. Let's go to verse 9.
And on the Sabbath day, 2 lambs of the first year without spot, and 2/10 deals of fine flour for a meat offering mingled with oil, and the drink offering thereof. This is the burnt offering of every Sabbath, besides the continual burnt offering and his drink offering.
So this is something that they were instructed to do. All right. Even though there's a thou shalt not do any work, right? They understood that. We understand that. They had to do this because the same person that said thou shalt not work, the same one said you need to do this. So some people get all in an uproar. Well, it's the understand you have to take all the commandments together collectively. Yeah, put them together. That's why it makes sense. So yes, you're just not supposed to be doing work. But he's saying the priests, they're my ministers, so they got to do this stuff every day. All right, so they were sacrificing every day. So this is the argument, because some people don't know this. Some people argue saying, well, see, you can't do feast days because you got to sacrifice. So if you're going to do it, you got to do it right. You got to sacrifice. Remember, we sacrifice every day. So you keeping that Sabbath, what did they do? According to the law. Then Christ said the law, they had to do, so they were sacrificing as well. All right, so they would sacrifice every day. They were doing sacrifice and doing it. So that was a work they did. Okay, but of course they weren't doing it on their own. They were doing that in obedience to what the law was saying as well. Okay, and this is why there's different things in the law. That's why when it comes to understanding, you just can't grab one law sometimes and just say, oh, see, it says it here. Sometimes there's other things that you got to connect with it. Okay, so they did sacrifice every day. Let's go back to Matthew's. Does somebody have something in the chat? Okay, so Elder. All right. So we give the example of David. All right. Have you heard and seen this? Then he goes, or have you not read in verse 5 how that on the Sabbath days with the S, these are also feast days, they will do sacrifice and stuff. The priests in the temple profane the Sabbath. And what is that word? And are what?
Blameless.
That word? Yes, blameless. I want you to understand God, the one that gave you the law, the only one that can make you blameless. Okay, it's not saying, even that's something, if you want to catch it, there's certain things. Blame mean to what? What do you mean? What it means to blame?
Be at fault. To
be at fault, right? So to be at fault according to law, to get in trouble, got consequences. This is something that the law offers. This is what God offers with certain things. So let's say, with me, you come in my house, it's a law that you take your shoes off, right? Some people got that, right? So you got to take your shoes off. Now, let's say, Kai, you come to my house and I say, you know what? You can keep your shoes on and everything. According to the rule of the house is what? You have to have your shoes on. That's the law. But also, I can what? You're good. You're blameless. Even though that law is put in place, I also, in the rule of the house, I also am the one that established it and gave it. So what? You're blameless. But somebody can look and say, see, Kai's over there disrespecting Mike's house. He going there with his shoes on. But what happened? You're blameless. So there's certain things that happen when you're seeing it. And God has already said, no, they're blameless for that one. As people will put blame on it, he said, no, I'm removing that. And this is what mercy and stuff is in. This is what people don't understand. The law has mercy in it. Because if we were going under the stringence of the law, yes, we know we all will fall short. But there's a little mercy and stuff in there. Okay, even though they messed up, I'm going to remove the blame. I'm going to remove the punishment from it. Okay, so with this one, it's not excluding it. He's just saying, no, they're blameless. They did nothing wrong because God allowed it. If they could understand. All right, read the next verse. This is going to show you some things too.
But I say unto you that in this place is one greater than the temple.
Mm-hmm. So now he gives a big thing. What does that mean? Somebody give me some emphasis on verse 6. Yeah, but I say unto you that in this place is one greater than the temple. Anybody want to take a stab at what that could be possibly talking about? I see Brother Tony get off of mute and everybody get off of mute. I'm not sure if y'all.
I was going to say that's Jesus saying that he's greater than the temple, because the temple can't give you everlasting life.
Okay.
And Jesus can. So he's greater than the actual building or than the temple.
Mm-hmm. Answer. Mm-hmm. Anybody got anything to add to it?
Okay. Right. Yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead. I'm sorry, Mike. Go ahead.
I thought everybody was good. Go ahead.
Yeah, we're at a point where the Most High doesn't even dwell in a temple made with hands. He was given the significance that he was going to dwell in us. He doesn't even dwell in a temple made with hands anymore. He actually now moved in us. It shows that he was going to actually be dwelling within us. So he's going to take that away. And also what Brother Tony said about the Most High, Jesus, going to move to a point of doing what the temple could not do.
Okay, yeah, you going futuristic. Okay, but yes, a lot of stuff definitely true. So when he's making that reference, one is greater than the temple, he's referring to himself. I'm greater than the temple. How is he? Go ahead, Brother Sean.
He's referring to himself because it was spoken in Malachi chapter 3, verse 1. It says, behold, I will send my messenger, and he shall prepare the way before me. And the Lord whom ye seek shall suddenly come to his temple, even the messenger of the covenant whom ye delight in. Behold, he shall come, saith the Lord of hosts. Mm-hmm. So he's talking about himself. He was talking about that in Malachi 3.
Yep. So this is talking about Christ. He's the one greater than the temple. But what does that mean? How is he greater than the temple? In what way? Why is he using the temple as a reference? It's an important part why Christ is saying these things. I used to read over it all the time. Why is he using the temple as a reference point? Saying greatness. Or is it important that he used the temple?
The temple going to be destroyed?
Yes, but I need more than that. Because he's talking about greater than the temple.
Bodies are the temples.
Say that again, Zaya.
Our bodies are the temples.
Okay. So Zaya saying our bodies are the temple. Yes, these are true statements. But go ahead, Elder.
Only the high priest could go into the temple, and he's going to become that high priest.
That is true. That is true. But this is not. This is still. That's going to be. That's such a great part of the answer. But yes, a little more. It's not just the high priest going in there. He's using the temple. What is the temple?
And the temple is where the law was exercised. The temple was looked upon as a place where even God dwells. So everything is done in the temple to please God and for us to get to God. But now Jesus is that temple. Mm-hmm. Jesus is that individual that's going to get us there. He's the one that we have to look to, not necessarily the rituals that are being done in the temple and the prayers that are being said and the candles that are being lit and the laws that are being, carried out. Jesus is all of those things. And so he is greater than the temple. Mm. And he's going to take the place of the temple.
Mm. Beautiful point. Beautiful point. Yes. So what everybody was saying, y'all using scripture and everything, it was right. Specifically, I want to get to, he was referring to that natural building. And there's one greater than this temple. Why was this a big deal? Because the temple, you had to go there to do what? Tony was bringing it out.
Absolve your sins.
To get right? When you messed up, this is how you become almost a sense of blameless, right? You go to the temple, you gotta get forgiven. When you do something wrong, you have to go there and get forgiven. Even though that temple does that, we know that what? There were certain things that thing couldn't do. There were certain things that thing couldn't clear up, the temple, the building, those sacrifices, right? That'd be done year by year. But who was greater than the temple? Who was greater? Who's gonna have that stronger connect to how we get to the Most High? Him. So he was giving them a big nugget if they could understand it. Because they had all their faith was in the temple, the sacrifice, doing it correctly. But he was trying to tell you, y'all have a lot of faith in that. But I'm telling you right now, if y'all understood what y'all dealing with, I'm greater than this temple. The temple was the greatest thing to them. And I'm talking about the law says and everything, they had to do that. I'm not taking that away. But Christ's trying to show them there's something greater in the temple. There's something that the temple can't do that I can do. It's not that the temple wasn't great, but he said, I'm greater. So this is that point. Okay. Go ahead. Somebody had something? I don't know if somebody got off mute. Okay. So Christ, everybody's correct. Christ is referring to himself there. And in this place is one greater than the temple. Okay. Because in the temple, they didn't have, remember, they was blameless. This is why I say it walks together. I'm getting some of this now. But what do he say in verse 5? Have you not read in the law, right? How that on the Sabbath days, the priests in the what? Temple profane the Sabbath. But because they're in the temple doing these things, it says what? They are blameless. Because they're in the temple, they're doing this thing according to law in the temple, they're blameless. Guess what? I'm greater than the temple. So if you're doing something under him, what is it? It's showing you're going to be that blameless as well. This is saying this is why they were blameless. Okay? But we'll get to that. Verse 7.
But if ye had known what this meaneth, I will have mercy and not sacrifice, you would not have condemned the guiltless.
Okay.
For the Son of Man is...
Hold on, we're going to stay with this. Anybody know what this is dealing with? If you have known what this meaneth. Why did he say that? If you know what this meaneth. I will have mercy and not sacrifice. He's been giving them examples for the last two. Do you think this is example 2 in verse 7? He gave him an example of David, right? In the Old Testament, in the writings, the law. He gave him an example of the priest. And a lot of people don't realize verse 7 is an actual scripture that he's referencing. Okay, anybody know where it's at? There we go.
6:6.
Right, let's go to Hosea 6:6. He's referencing something. People try to act like they got something new. See, when Christ came on the scene, he was trying to show it wasn't about sacrifice and everything. That is nothing new. If you read the Old Testament, we've been new. It was all about the sacrifices. All right. But we had to do it to be according to God's word. All right. But we know it was nothing that he was loving. We was killing all the bullocks and no, he wasn't his whole mission. Be killing all these animals. All right. All right. So we had a Hosea 6. Let me see if I want to go above. Give me verse 1 and then we'll jump down. Oh, let me get on the screen. Yes. All right. So we're going because remember I said when you go back and see where they're referencing it from, sometimes it's a little more, right? Sometimes they don't always put the whole verse. Or quote the whole thing, all right? So let's go to 6. Give me verse 1 first. Give me a little bit of context.
It reads, "Come and let us return unto the Lord, for he hath torn and he will heal us. He hath smitten and he will bind us up."
So reading this, come and return unto the Lord. So somebody must be away from the Lord, right? For he have torn us, right? He tore us apart. And what? He will heal us. He have smitten us and he will bind us up. So it seemed like the Lord done beat us up, but he's saying he'll fix us up. Okay. So we see what's happening. All right. Let's jump down to give me verse 4.
"O Ephraim, what shall I do unto thee? Mm-hmm. O Judah, what shall I do unto thee? For your goodness is as a morning cloud, and the early dew, it goeth away."
All right, so it's there and then it's gone. Verse 5.
"Therefore have I hewed them by the prophets. Mm-hmm. I have slain them by the words of my mouth. Mm-hmm. And thy judgments are as the light that goeth forth."
All right, so we messing up and it says, "Therefore I hewed them by the prophets. I have slain them by the words of my mouth." All right, so he's correcting. He's doing things to them. All right, now verse 6. Listen to this, because this is what Christ referenced.
"For I desired mercy and not sacrifice, and the knowledge of God more than burnt offerings."
So this is what now he's grabbing this point. He's doing these things, right? He's giving these judgments. He said, "I desired what? Mercy." Mm-hmm. Wait up. Mercy only came across. Mercy been in the scriptures. Even in the law, there's been mercy. If it wasn't mercy, David will be done, wouldn't he? Because he did something contrary to the what? Law. But Christ is showing you, just how y'all recognize that, y'all see that wasn't going to be held against them. Now don't try to play me. Basically, don't try to get at me and the disciples. Okay, so when you're looking at this, he desired mercy and not what? Sacrifices. Okay, he always wanted to give us mercy. It was never about the sacrifices. Okay, next part.
"But they like men had transgressed the
covenant." I'm sorry, next part of verse 6, because I think Christ only quoted the first part of that verse, right?
Okay.
Yes, I will have mercy and not sacrifice. And he says, but he don't finish that verse, do he? So read that verse 6 again.
And the knowledge of God more than burnt offerings.
So that's the part that's left out. He also desired you to have knowledge of God more than what? Burnt offerings.
Mm-hmm.
Because they messed up the Sabbath. What do you have to do when you do something contrary to the law? What do you have to do? You have to sacrifice. You have to do some offering, right? Mm-hmm. God was using Christ to give them knowledge. I want y'all to get some knowledge what this thing's about. And Sean brought it out before. A lot of times they were making laws from the laws of God. They would add some stuff in it, and it started becoming to the commandments of men. They started saying this is the law of God, but it wasn't from the law of God. They were getting that understanding or grabbing stuff and making it like that. Mm-hmm. And when we get to the unclean hands and things, we're going to see that. They were saying you're going against God. And Christ said that ain't God commandments. That's something that y'all gravitate and used it, and now y'all put it as the law of God. All right. So when they're picking the corn, if you hungry and like I said, they were doing the work of God. They weren't just, we got houses and stuff there, so we got something. They were doing the work of God. They were traveling. They didn't have no refrigerator walking with them and stuff like that. So they're hungry is right there. Grab the thing and eat it. Don't be thinking you breaking the commandments. That's not what it was. That's not what the law was for, designed to do. Okay. It was dealing with you resting and not going and doing the work, but they weren't understanding that. And this is why I say there's a spiritual aspect behind these laws. You have to get in the spirit to understand what these things are saying. Okay. All right. Was there anything else we need there, brother? Read verse 7. Let me get verse 7.
But they, like men, had transgressed the covenant. There have they dealt treacherously against me. All
right. So like men, they have transgressed the covenant. They have dealt treacherously against me. And we see exactly what they was doing during Christ's time. Right? Then they transgressed the covenant and dealt treacherously against the Most High. All right. So read that verse 7 again and Matthew 12.
But if you had known what this means, I will have mercy and not sacrifice. You would not have condemned the guiltless.
You see that? If you knew what Hosea 6:6 was dealing with, was talking about, you wouldn't be trying to get on these brothers doing this. From eating that corn. You would know, if you knew what that meant, I will have mercy and not sacrifice. Ye would not have condemned the guiltless. Mm-hmm. All right. This is why with all I get understanding. Sometimes if one of the Pharisees was looking at it and they was loving the disciples, because sometimes they was being guilty by association. If you wasn't trying to find fault with somebody, you could have sat back and praised him, Lord. It seemed like they breaking the commandments. And the Lord could have brought the scripture that Christ used. Remember David did this? Oh, okay. All right. Well, maybe they all right. But they was trying to find fault with Christ. Y'all got to read when they would come up to Christ with a lot of things, it would say to tempt him, right? They're not coming in the spirit to get understanding. They want to catch him up with something, to have him guilty. They was trying to make people guilty and condemn everybody, right? So this is why he's saying this, all right? Verse 8.
For the Son of Man is Lord, even of the Sabbath day.
Everybody get that? Son of Man, Christ saying, I'm the Lord. I'm the master of the Sabbath day. All right? What he sets free is free indeed. What he binds is bound indeed. All right? Michael didn't say you can't work on Sabbath. Who said it? He said it. All right? He set the rules for it. Okay? So for the Son of Man is Lord even of the Sabbath day. Okay? All right. Verse 9.
And when he was departed thence, he went into their synagogue.
Okay.
And behold, there was a man which had his hand withered. And they asked him, saying, is it lawful to heal on the Sabbath days, that they might accuse him?
Y'all see that? What was the problem with these guys? Were they really trying to get understanding? were these people trying to get understanding. Just the Val?
No, they were still, in my opinion, they were still trying to find something to accuse them of. That's all it was about.
Mm-hmm. And it's not your opinion. It's true, right? Because you read it. What it said at the end. Read verse 10 again. It ain't
that
no
they
opinion.
might accuse him.
Right, letting you know right off the bat, they were coming in the spirit to accuse him. And beloved, this is why we have to be so careful, because we even dealing with that last night. It's not for everybody and everything. Some people are just trying to question you with certain things to accuse you. They don't want to know it so they can serve God. They don't want to know it for any knowledge of God. They just want to do it so they can justify themselves or argue with you.
Yeah, that's right.
Right? Like Lil was saying, well, they grab that scripture and say, well, what about, that could be the same thing for eating pork and stuff and everything. But and they try to get you to answer their questions so it can just. And that's what a lot of people still do. Try to accuse you. Oh, why you do that? Sometimes because they ask you a question does not mean they want to know it. And we have to be in the spiritual mindset to see. Because Most High might say, you know what, don't respond. Wait, you're supposed to be a man or woman of God. You're supposed to help me out. Spirit be like, nope, don't respond. Because all they're doing is trying to get this stuff so they can use it against you or use it against somebody else that's trying to serve God. All right. So behold, verse 10, there was a man which had his hand withered. I want y'all to hear how these people are. His hand was withered, and they asked him, is it lawful to heal on the Sabbath days? All right. Any of the Sabbath days, is it lawful to heal? All right, Brother Kyle, let's see what happens. Oh,
these are disgusting. Verse 11, and he said unto them, what man shall there be among you that shall have one sheep, and if it fall into a pit on the Sabbath day, will he not lay hold on it and lift it out?
I love Christ is just so brilliant. When you really read it, it's like, man, this dude's a genius. How he deals with them, it's just, he's good. It's master teacher. Let me say a master teacher. What did Christ just do? What did Christ just do here? How did he respond here?
He basically exposed their hypocrisy. Y'all gonna go save an animal, but here we have a human that's greater than the animal. Y'all gonna sit here, and accuse me of healing him. This man got his hand withered at the end of the day. He's an Israelite. And y'all care more about the animal than y'all do the actual human being who is your brother. Like, come on.
There we go. These brothers was blind. They weren't seeing things how it's supposed to be seen. Even with the first story, they didn't care about. They weren't even worried about the brothers was hungry, And this is the thing. Sometimes you're ready to condemn them for being hungry, but they shouldn't be able to go to you, and you should be able to offer them something. Sometimes we ready to condemn something, but we don't want to be part of the solution. Oh, you breaking the commandments. You ain't supposed to be cooking that food, but you ain't offering nothing. You ain't doing nothing. Right? So this is something that we have to really look and analyze. But Christ threw right back at him. And Brother Kai broke it down beautifully. He said, you worry about the hand being withered, but you had no problem considering to help the animal that fell into a pit. You knew the law wasn't dealing with work when you was pulling that animal out, which is way harder. Isn't that more work than picking corn, pulling out an animal out of a ditch? This is why I said those brothers, their mind wasn't right. They do nothing with the law. It was their mind. If they was really doing the law, their mind would be different. But the sheep had more value. The animal had more value than your own brother. His hand was withered. Do y'all see how crazy that is? I want y'all to realize they had issues. They had issues. This is why people quoting certain things and grabbing. I see you, Elder. They grabbing these things. I'm like, did you read the story? Did you read what's going on? Right? Go ahead, Elder.
We got to remember the society they were in. A lot of your wealth was based on cattle. So, the forethought for them could have been about money as well. In other words, this is how, don't forget, if you see my ox, you better get it and bring it back to me, because there was money attached to the ox. So they're not thinking about the man in distress. They're more thinking about selfish gain.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And no, that could definitely be part of it as well. But I want you to understand, we understand these laws. We understand it when we want to deal with certain things, but then we get oblivious to other parts, right? We don't got to do a little more. God is able. He's great. God is able in one aspect, but then he ain't able in this aspect, right? So when we look at these things, we have to make sure we're in the right spirit. Let's read verse 12. There's some more emphasis on that.
Yeah, I just want to add this, the Sabbath we supposed to rest, right? But if you see your loved one in distress, like let's say you see your mom fall out, you shouldn't have the mindset, well, I'm not going to lift her up because that's working right there. At the end of the day, we still supposed to love our brothers and sisters. You know what I mean? You see somebody in distress, you help them at the end of the day. The Most High don't want us moving like that. We shouldn't even have that type of mindset. You know what I mean? What you said, verse 12?
Yeah, and that's a great point, Brother Kai, because a lot of people, that's what I said, a lot of people grab these laws and then they just don't get the understanding what he's dealing with, and they go so far to the right.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Somebody fall, you can't help them out. Well, I can't, I don't want to walk, outside, because if I walk outside, that's considered work. I'm doing it. We have to understand what the scriptures is dealing with, right? And this was emergency cases. Okay, you don't plan for your ox to fall in the ditch, or this is not happening every week. See, now that's a problem. Okay, that's not what this is saying. It's not to say, oh well, my car breaks down every time I drive and everything. Well, you need to consider the car and you need to fix it. But if your car mess up, you driving. Hopefully, you be driving to church. You shouldn't be driving somewhere else. You might be reaping. But if you driving to do, the ministry or congregating or whatever, to observe his law, and then something happened, you're on the highway and your car messed up. Well, I don't want to call, the tow people, because that's going to make them work and that's going to be against the law. Beloved, call that tow person. Don't be sitting out there, ready to freeze to death or burn up, or, you out there. Okay. That's one of those emergency cases. That's the understanding of the law is, no, that's not what that's dealing with. All right. So there's people that still was sick on the Sabbath that they had to still, if you have somebody that's really sick, definitely, they get older and they got them elements. Some people you got to care for 24/7. You don't say, well, Sabbath about to come in. You're going to be on your own soon. I can't break the Sabbath. That's not why he had it, beloved. All right. So we have to use righteous intelligence with these things. All right. Verse 12.
How much then is a man better than a sheep?
Mm-hmm.
Wherefore it is lawful to do well on the Sabbath days.
All right, and that's what he's hitting on. Okay, and Brother Nazai, he's right in the comments. He said they're playing checkers and Christ is playing chess. He truly is.
Mm-hmm.
Right, because this is what it's about. Now, and the thing is, you throw it back at, and I love it because he throw it back at them. He's not giving them all these scriptures. He's gonna throw it back at you. Because I know you just want to catch me up, but I'm going to throw it back at you, and you're going to answer your own question. And if you answer it honestly, it's going to condemn yourself. Because you're going to save that sheep. You probably saved that sheep this morning, right? But he's saying you want to save them, but you don't worry about this person. So what do you love, the sheep over the man? And anybody with a straight head going to be like, damn, that does sound off. you have more compassion on the sheep than you do your fellow brother or sisters. All right. So that's wicked in so many things. But he's saying the law also says, this is what I'm saying, wherefore it is lawful, right? Lawful being according to the law to do well on the Sabbath days. It is still according to the law to do good. Doing good is not just trying to break law. The context of good, All right. But a brother being hungry and they starving, feed them. You're allowed to feed them. You don't got to you don't have to start putting the stove on and making a gourmet dinner, but you can feed them. That's part of the law as well. But they wanted to observe one aspect of the law and forsake the other. And that's what Christ had a problem with. If you're going to do the law, do all of it. Don't be a hypocrite. That ain't part of the law. If you're going to do it all the way. So it is lawful to do well on the Sabbath. It's lawful to do good things on the Sabbath day. Okay. Verse 13.
Then saith he to the man, stretch forth thine hand. And he stretched it forth, and it was restored whole, like as the other.
So he gave him that, and he knew he done popped him with that response. And he over there and basically answered the question for him and restored that arm. You know, see that? Because there's going to be people, and this is something good, there's going to be people that's always going to condemn what you're doing. Oh, they teach that. Yeah, you got to get that. There's always going to be something. Somebody going to have something. I don't even hear. You got to have somebody saying something. All right? You got to make sure it's according to the scriptures, and then you just live free. Don't worry about what they're saying. Because Christ is always, they blaming Christ with everything. They had a problem with everything he was doing. Why did they have that same energy when he was doing good? Christ was doing so much good, but because they did not like him, they couldn't even see the good. They couldn't see people being healed from things that they couldn't even heal. But this is what that hatred would do. This is why he talked about that love, because we was hating one another. And when you hate somebody, you can't even see the good in them. All you can see, all the Lord, this is what people do. All the Lord allows you to see is the things they're doing wrong. But you can't grab the things they're doing right. Why is it your first instinct to look at what they do wrong? Your first instinct to see what they're doing wrong and condemning. Why is that the first thing you think about? Mm-hmm. You see your brother, okay. He got his fringes on, okay, I see this. Man, he ain't no real believer. Dang, all he did was come. He said shalom. Oh, he don't really know it's shalom. You know, he's brothers, stop getting crazy. Your heart is off. Oh, that sister, she's new. She came in, you know what I mean? Look how she dressed. Oh, she dressed like that. She ain't really serious about God. That's the first thing. You can't applaud the sister for coming and saying, I want to hear something different than when I was out in the world. You can't rejoice. You can't greet her with love before you over there ready to condemn and say how I can't be connected to somebody. I gotta have a problem with him. I don't like how he looked at me. Yeah, he must believe this. It's because of this. That same spirit is dealing with now. Make sure we don't have that same spirit. Because everybody's saying, well, if I was in those days, I would have believed Christ and ran. No, you wouldn't have. You're doing the same thing those people that was tempting Christ was doing. Ready to accuse somebody. Why don't you ask them why they believe that? Maybe you might be that person, like the scriptures say, teach them something so you can be show them a more excellent way, right? Then the brother and sister show that preacher a more excellent way. They was good in the scriptures, but they was lacking something. But they could have went and condemned them. Oh, see, he don't know stuff. He shouldn't even be a preacher. See, he's wicked. See, he's going to lead them all to hell. That's what we be doing. But no, they had the Spirit of God saying, brother, I see what you're doing good. Let me drop some jewels, and you know, it can make you a better teacher, because that's what I see. You want to be great, and you're doing great. Let me add some stuff to you. Why don't we do that first before we find out all our differences and find a reason why we shouldn't deal with somebody? Why don't you find reasons of why you can deal with somebody? And this is what we teach here. Okay. All right. How much more man better than the sheep? Wherefore is lawful to do well on the Sabbath days. All right. Verse 13.
Then saith he to the man, stretch forth thine hand. And he stretched it forth, and it was restored whole, like as the other.
And if you understand that, that's still connecting with what he's talking about before, because he did what? When he healed them, what did he do? That's a sign of forgiveness. Gave that brother mercy, didn't he?
Mm-hmm.
Because to heal somebody, you don't have to heal somebody, do we? Do the Most High have to heal you?
Nope.
What is that? When he does that, that's a sign of mercy. What did he do? He gave him mercy. Is it lawful to give mercy on the Sabbath day? Absolutely. This is why people don't understand. That's why he said, if you understood what this means, you wouldn't be condemning. But they didn't understand. They had some knowledge of the law, but they didn't understand it all. Not how it's supposed to be. All right, let's keep going, brother.
Then the Pharisees went out and held a council against him, how they might destroy him.
Y'all see that? They don't like that. Why? The thing is, who asked who the question? Was Christ over there messing with them? Read it. Did Christ ask them a question, or did they ask him a question? Go to verse 10. Read verse 10.
And behold, there was a man which had his hand withered, and they asked him, saying, is it lawful to heal on the Sabbath days, that they might accuse him?
See, when you skill, Christ is showing a perfect response. When you skill, they don't understand. You asked me the question. You came to me. All I did was respond to your question. And you see what that can do? The Pharisees went out and held a council against them that they might destroy him. People going to try to destroy you. And they had no reason. Why can't you just do what God has told you? And this is what I'm going to realize. When you just doing what God is telling you to do, you don't even got to look for stuff. Those things is going to start trying to attack you. And you got to understand that. You got to embrace it. When we talk about endure as a good soldier. When you start doing these things according to the word of God, I guarantee you after a while, somebody's going to start attacking you. Calling you names, right? So they held a council that they might destroy him, okay? Because he didn't agree with the doctrine. Same spirit. Let's keep going.
But when Jesus knew it, he withdrew himself from thence, and great multitudes followed him, and he healed them all.
Why did he withdraw himself? When Jesus knew it, he knew that they had counsel to do it. He withdrew himself from this. You ain't gonna find it in the verse, but I want you to think about, why did he withdraw himself? Why do we have Christ withdrawing himself? I want somebody new then. I don't want Elder or Kai or Sean. Why do we think Christ might have withdrew himself? All right, open up to anybody. And brothers, why would Christ withdraw himself? It's not too deep of an answer. They were trying to destroy him, and he withdrew himself. Sister Val.
Oh, why stay where there's trouble? They weren't interested in the good works he was doing, so time to move on.
Okay. Yeah, he moved the stuff he seen they was trying to destroy him, and he had to do something else. So Val made a great point. They was trying to destroy him, and he had to flee. Right? He had to remove himself, and he had missions to do. He still had to do missions. I'm trying to say it without giving the answer out. But why? Because he ain't always withdraw himself. Remember, Christ had a certain things he had to do, right? His time was not yet. He already knew he had to be captured by him, right? Remember he said they're going to get him, they're going to, crucify him, and he's going to rise at 30. He already knew he had to be captured by him. But he's saying, nah, it ain't the time right now. So this is why he withdrew himself. All right, go ahead, Elder.
Yeah, his mission, he had to do all of what he was here to do. And all of it was to fulfill all suffering. So he had to do everything he couldn't break prophecy at all. He had to do everything he was called to do.
Mm-hmm. Yep, so at a certain time he had to, present himself there. So at that time it wasn't. So he definitely had to leave. But when it was that time, when he told Judas, go what you got to do, he knew it was the time then. I ain't going to go nowhere. Judas probably thought he was going to get a quick buck because he's like, every time they try to come after him, he escapes. But no, at that time, he's like, nope, this is the time. All right, to do my Father's will. All right, just wanted to throw that one in there. All right, and the great multitudes followed him, and he healed them all. And this is crazy, y'all. He's healing all these people. You would think the leaders of the people will rejoice. Somebody get this. I just want to keep making these points because he was healing people, and they could not see it because they hated him. They couldn't see the good he was doing. They could only see, well, we're gonna lose our power. They're gonna start following him. Because see, some things is about us. We got to get that spirit out of us. It ain't all about us. All right, Brother Kai, let's keep going.
And he charged them that they should not make him known, that it might be fulfilled which was spoken by Isaiah the prophet, saying, behold my servant, whom I chosen, my beloved, in whom my soul was well pleased. I will put my spirit upon him, and he shall show forth, and he shall show judgment to the Gentiles. He shall not strive nor cry, neither shall any man hear his voice in the streets. A bruised reed shall he not break, and a smoking flax shall he not quench, till he send forth judgment unto victory.
So why they just say all this? This was a reference point, right? It says, verse 17, that it might be fulfilled. Remember, it was just brought out. He had to fulfill things. This happened that it might be fulfilled what Isaiah said. Okay. And this is, who's Isaiah? Why are they saying Isaiah?
This is Isaiah 42.
Isaiah. All right. So hold this. So the reason, I want you to grab a point. Christ is in there. He's dealing with them. And in verse 16, he says, he charged them that they should not make him known, that it might be fulfilled. So the whole point of this section that he's dealing with right here is to fulfill the prophecy. He's not trying to make himself known. And he's doing that because there's a prophecy that's dealing with that. All right. So let's go to Isaiah 42 to see what he's grabbing. Okay. This is why people are saying you don't got to worry about that. They call it the Old Testament, all that stuff, and none of it. It's like you have no idea. You don't even know Christ's teachings because they're all referencing back to the scriptures. All right, brother.
I got 1 through 4, 6 through 8, and 16 through 24.
Okay. Yeah. Let's start from 1.
Behold my servant, whom I uphold, my elect, and whom my soul delighteth. I have put my spirit upon him. He shall bring forth judgment to the Gentiles. He shall not cry, nor lift up, nor cause his voice to be heard in the street. A bruised reed shall he not break, and a smoking flax shall he not quench.
All right. So what's happening so far? What is he bringing out? These first 3. These first 3 verses. Said, behold my servant whom I uphold, mine elect, and whom my soul delighteth. Who's that?
Christ.
All right. Remember, he's fulfilling it. Talking about himself. All right. So it was a prophecy in Isaiah because what people were supposed to get the secrets. Old Testament said people were supposed to get the secrets. And he said we reveal it to his prophets. What people are you talking about?
Israel.
All right. So Israel gets all the secrets and things of that nature. So when he's saying certain things, who would recognize it? Israel. Because they got the scripture. Remember, they got the laws and everything. So when him saying this, the people that don't understand it, it wouldn't have no value. He's saying this because some of us, that was obtained to the scriptures will recognize. Remember, his whole thing was, is this that prophet? Is this that guy? So he's referencing these points as well. All right. Behold my servant whom I behold, my elect in whom my soul delighteth. I have put my spirit upon him. Okay. And we know Christ got the spirit, right? He shall bring forth judgment to the Gentiles. What is another name for Gentiles?
Nation, heathen, or people.
Okay. So it can be referred to as nations. It can be referred to as heathens, because basically everybody that wasn't Israel basically considered heathens. All right. So nations, heathens, whatever. And it could be also referred to as Israelites, specifically the other tribes, when we understand the split and everything. All right. Why we know with this aspect is dealing with that. Because I know people are going to ask questions, so we might as well just get it there. When he's saying bring forth judgment to the Gentiles, why we know that wasn't dealing with everybody in the world? Or was that dealing with everybody? And this is just for understanding. So I just want to bring it out. How do we know who that's dealing with? Because Gentiles mean nation. It can be, how do we specify which one from this statement?
Well, in this chapter, he's gonna break it down with Gentiles that he's specifically talking to and dealing with. All in this chapter. You don't have to jump around.
Yeah. So, and yeah, we're gonna get to it as well. Remember, Christ didn't go to everybody. So we know, because it says he shall bring forth judgment to the Gentiles. So that means he's going to actually have to go and present these things. So all you do is look back to what he's doing, because this is who the scripture is dealing with. Okay. So just showing that. Verse 2, he shall not cry nor lift up his voice to be heard in the street. What is that saying? Just real quick. Anybody know what that's saying? He should not cry. We quote that. A lot of people quote that scripture, cry loud, spare not. He's not going to be loud. He's not going to be all causing commotion from himself in the streets, to make his voice to be heard in the streets. A bruised reed shall he not break. He's not be coming and busting heads and making all this commotion. Smoking flax shall he not quench. He shall bring forth judgment unto truth. All right. So he's coming back in more of a laid back manner. We know that when he come back again, it ain't going to be that way. So he's telling how he's coming. This is why when they reference it in Matthew, it says he told them not to reveal who he was, right? So that this can be fulfilled. He's telling them, this is why I'm telling y'all, don't go doing all this and making a big ruckus in the street. I'm trying to come, silently through here. All right. Keep reading.
A bruised reed shall he not break, and a smoking flax shall he not quench. He shall bring forth judgment unto truth. Let me skip down to verse 6 through 8. It reads,
can you give me verse 4 before we go?
Okay. He shall not fail nor be discouraged till he have set judgment in the earth, and the isle shall wait for his law.
All right. So that's another point, because we know he was in the Isles and teaching and doing things, right? And they're going to wait for it, because we was promised that, these things are going to happen. So they were waiting for him. And that's why it was a big rejoicing moment when they realized it. That's him. Son of David is here. That's him. All right. So this was all prophesied. All right, Brother Kai, go ahead. You can take over.
Verse 5. When we read verse 5 as well.
If you want to. That's fine.
Okay. It says, thus saith the Lord God, he that created the heavens and stretched them out, he that spread forth the earth and that which come out of it, he that giveth breath unto the people upon it, and the spirit to them that walk therein. Keep going?
Yeah.
Okay. I, the Lord, have called thee in righteousness, and would hold thine hand, and would keep thee, and give thee for a covenant of the people, for a light of the Gentiles. So we're seeing in verse 6, he said he called thee in righteousness, and will hold his hand, and will give thee, which is Christ, for a light, to the Gentiles. these Gentiles that he's dealing with here are lost Israelites who has, been disinherited, don't know who they are, the ones that still dwelling in the land. This is the state that these Gentiles are in when Christ comes. Verse 7, it says to open the blind eyes, to bring out the prisoners from prison, and them that sit in darkness out of the prison house. They were in prison far as their sin. They was in bondage. Verse 8, here it go right here. I, the Lord, that is my name, and my glory I would not give to another, neither my praise to graven images. Well, the house of Israel, all throughout the land, what happened with the split with Jeroboam and Rehoboam? They was worshiping false gods. They was into whoredom. So the whole context here is dealing with his people because they was given the law at the end of the day. I'm going to skip down to verse 16. Scroll up on the screen, beloved. It reads, now here, these same Gentiles, right? The ones that's deaf and blind. It says, I will bring the blind by a way that they knew not. I will lead them in paths that they have not known. I will make darkness light before them and crooked things straight. These things will I do unto them and not forsake them. Verse 17, they shall be turned back. It said they shall be turned back. So in order to be turned back, you had to be turned away at one point in time, beloved. It says, they shall be greatly ashamed that trusted in graven images. So when we find out, that the Most High is the Most High at the end of the day, and not Moloch and Balaam and the Queen of Heaven or what have you, they're going to be ashamed. That say to molten images, ye are of gods. Okay, he's talking to this group of people. Hear ye deaf and look ye blind, that ye may see. Who was blind but my servant, or deaf as my messenger that I sent? Who is blind as he that is perfect, and blind as the Lord's servant? This is what they're doing, even now, seeing many things, but thou observest not. So you seeing these things, but you choosing not to understand at the end of the day. Opening the ears, but heareth not. He said, who have ears to hear that I'm here? It says, the Lord is well pleased for his righteousness' sake. He will magnify the law and make it honorable. But this is a people robbed and spoiled. They are all of them snared in holes, and they are hid in prison houses. There are for a prey, and none delivereth, for a spoil, and none saith restore. Who among you will give ear to this? Who will hearken and hear for to come? Because we know this is a prophecy that has to be fulfilled, right, beloved? Watch this in verse 24. These Gentiles right here, he was talking about, they was deaf and blind. Who gave Jacob for a spoil and Israel to the robbers? Did not the Lord, he against whom we have sinned? This is not dealing with the other nations, beloved. For they would not walk in his laws, neither were they obedient unto his law. So the law wasn't given to all nations on Mount Sinai and Mount Horeb. It was given to Israel, the nation of Israel, beloved. So these Gentiles, they are not Japhethites, they are not Hamites, they are no other than Israel that have been disinherited when the Most High divorced them and took his name back from them.
Praises. And so I want to grab a spot in here because I seen it was good. That verse 19, who is blind but my servants, or deaf as my message that I sent? Who is blind as he that is perfect, and blind as the Lord's servant? So we see that this is very crucial, because the people that's asking these questions to Christ, they're supposed to be his servants. These was the ones that's supposed to be the messengers and the teachers. And they're the ones that's blind. And this is why when it talks about the blind leading the blind and those things, he's dealing with them. I sent y'all, I gave you these things, and y'all changing things up, y'all messing things up. This is why he's saying, you're not a master in Israel, you know not these things. You judging me? Didn't David do that? He's throwing these things out there. He's not being ignorant to people that shouldn't know. He's telling them, y'all studying, doing all this stuff. Y'all supposed to be my messengers, and y'all making a shipwreck. That's why he's coming to correct it. Couldn't get somebody else to come and correct it because there's order. So Christ had to come and correct it. So that's what he's doing. He's magnifying. I go to that verse a lot. The Lord, verse 21, the Lord is well pleased for his righteousness' sake. He will magnify the law and make it honorable. Not destroy the law. I'm going to magnify the law. That means if the law was, let's say the law was this big, he's going to magnify, he's going to make it bigger. He's going to make it more binding. How is he doing that? He was bringing clarity to what these scriptures were dealing with. He was making it honorable because they was dishonoring it. They was putting hypocrisy in there. They was putting their vain imaginations in there. They was doing all these things, and it was dishonoring the law. And they were saying, this is what God wants. This is what God desires of us. This is why we got to be very mindful how we are breaking these things down, because sometimes we can put burdens on people that the Most High never put. And this is when we talk about the righteousness of men establishing their own righteousness, like in Romans 10. Okay, so we have to be mindful of it. So Christ is cleaning up things that man has made filthy law. What they tainted in the law, he's cleaning it up because he's magnifying and making it honorable. Okay.
I want to give an example of that too. But, just real quick. Matthew 5 and 27 through 28. I just want to magnify it. I mean, it was something that it was always there, you know what I mean? But the Pharisees, they wasn't teaching the spiritual part of the law. You know, they were saying it's okay, you know, as long as you don't sleep with a woman, you good. But they wasn't teaching that you're not supposed to sleep with another man's wife in your heart. They wasn't teaching that. 27, yeah. Matthew 5 and 27. And it reads, ye have heard that it was said by them of old time, thou shalt not commit adultery. But I say unto you that whosoever look upon a woman to lust after her committed adultery with her already in his heart. So basically right there, he was magnifying the law. You know what I mean? This is stuff that wasn't being taught by our leaders and teachers, preachers, priests or what have you. You know, they would teach, you know, the outward part of the law. Yeah, you don't sleep with another man's wife, but what about coveting after a man's wife? You know what I mean? In your heart, you know? That's him magnifying the law right there. That's him teaching the spiritual part of the law.
And that's a great point. I'm going to get right to you. That's a great point you brought out with that. Because a lot of people say, see, Christ was over there. See, he was changing the law in there. He didn't change nothing there. Nope. Where did he say he didn't change nothing? He actually said what? He's adding some extra information that you left out. Because what we would say is, well, technically, if we don't sleep with her, we good. We ain't commit adultery. Right. We can have the thought, we can fantasize, we can put, but as long as you don't sleep with her, that's when you're wrong. When you actually sleep with her, that's when you committed the sin. But everything else, you're kind of good. Mm-hmm. This is the kind of stuff they was coming up with. Right. And when you look at David, they would have said David wasn't wrong looking at her when he was on that rooftop. He wasn't even wrong when he brought her over to his kingdom. He was only got wrong when he actually slept and did the act. See, that's when he was against the law. But see, us have understanding, no. When you looked at her and you ain't turned your head and said, I ain't dealing with that, you was already in violation of the law. And all you did was what? He just manifested when he slept with her. But you was already in violation beforehand. This is what Christ was bringing out and exposing. See, these brothers was teaching it. They was teaching law. They got some things right on the surface, but there were some things that they weren't understanding. Elder had his hand up, and then Nasiah, you go right after that.
Yeah, with this, Kai touched a lot of great points. You know, when you look at Israel, we've been a whore to everybody. You find us in every whorehouse. Prosperity gospel, we're there. Yoga, we're there. Anywhere you go, we're there. And I brought it up because I thought about when I was in church. I traveled all over to see Fred Price, who used to be a prosperity teacher. And when I think back at all the lessons, it was all about having some stuff here on this earth. So when we were just touching that, if you look at Jeremiah, he tells us that we were in harlot houses. And then if you go all the way to Peter, he goes back and say they made merchandise of us. You were a Bentley, you were a big house. But when I thought about what Brother Kai was saying, we've opened our legs for every religion. Everything you can see, you will find us in it. Mm-hmm. That's all I wanted to add.
So yeah, I want to just make some clarity. When we go through the scriptures, it'll refer to us as, you know, a nation, or, you know, sometimes even female almost, right? So when it's saying that we have allowed like everybody to deal with us, we allowed other people influences of their gods and their beliefs to come with us. So it's a form of almost fornication, because we're supposed to be married to the Most High. So when Elder was saying certain things about, you know, we had our lane open and we were dealing with everything, it's talking about as a nation, we was dealing with other things that we weren't supposed to be dealing with. We were supposed to be married to Christ and only dealing with him. This is why Paul's saying, I'm trying to present you as a chaste version under Christ. I don't want you having all the being tainted by all these other religions and doctrines and stuff that's not according to the gospel. All right. So just in case some people didn't understand.
Thanks, brother. Thanks.
No problem. But great point the brothers brought out. Brother Naziah, and then Kai, I don't know if you were saying something, you go after that.
I just wanted to bring out, because like just about earlier this week, now that we're talking about it, I was telling some brothers that, you know, lust begins with the eyes and stuff, man. You're not supposed to be lusting up your sisters and stuff, man. So I just thought it was crazy, because I just thought about, I was talking about somebody talking about this last week.
Great point. And this is what people thinking these scriptures are talking about. See, they were off because they was thinking law, but it's about the spirit, and spirit takes away the law. No. Spirit is in the law. Mercy is in the law. Some people just don't see it, but it's been there. If it wasn't, people would have been wiped out, right? Because we weren't doing this thing right. So when we come and being teachers and everything, right, we have to understand those things, because people coming and they don't all come with hate. Sometimes they're getting taught some of these things that's contrary, you know. So we definitely got to make sure we're patient, right? Like we read last night, so be patient, and we, you know, we can build with certain people, you know, because a lot of people are getting taught these things. Yeah, I'll leave it at that. A lot of people just getting taught certain things. Kai, you had something?
No, I'm good. Y'all brought it out. All praise.
Yeah. So we'll deal with that. And there's a lot of misconceptions with certain things. And as the Lord opened things up, you can see more clearly what's actually being told. And that's why I say, let's look at the context. You know, sometimes we just go right to a verse. You know, sometimes we do that with lessons just for time's sake. But when you're doing something, and usually things that start getting mixed up, is because we're not grabbing the context. All right. All right. What verse?
Verse 21.
All right, verse 21, and okay. Go ahead, brother.
And it reads, "And in his name shall the Gentiles trust."
And this is who they did trust. Remember, when he's walking, "Thou son of David, have mercy on me. You saved me." So, you know, they was trusting in it, right? So some people, not everybody, there was some people that believed in God. And they believed that God sent his son and this was him. There was people there. Now you had some of the higher ups and the powers that be of the nation that didn't believe, and ultimately, you know, crucified our Savior. But don't let people tell you that nobody believed in him. See, they didn't believe because they had the law. No, there was even Pharisees, some that believed in him. You can go to Nicodemus. He said, "We know." We is plural, right? That ain't singular. He said, "We know that you're a teacher, you know, and you can only do these miracles unless God be with him." So they was something that understood. Like, yeah, y'all saying stuff about him, but he just got too many works and stuff that he can't be, you know, nothing less than what was promised of the scriptures. Okay. So this is why the nation, they did trust. You read verse 22?
No.
Okay, let's keep going.
"Then was brought unto him one possessed with a devil, blind and dumb, and he healed him, and so much that the blind and dumb both spake and saw."
All right. So somebody was possessed with a devil, possessed with the unclean spirit, and they say he was blind and dumb. What does it mean to be dumb, according to the word of God? Why they call people dumb?
can't speak.
All right. Yeah, usually can't speak. All right. So when it's talking about they dumb, and this is why it says that the blind and dumb both spoke and saw, because a blind man can't see and a dumb man can't speak. So he's able to do it. All right. Anybody got anything? We're going to read 2 more verses, then we'll probably. Yeah, let's read verse 23.
And all the people were amazed and said, is not this the son of David?
What does that mean? What the heck did that have to do if he's the son of David? There's a lot of sons of David. Or was there only one son of David? Throw that question out to the group. They said, is not this the son of David? Weren't there a lot of people that was the sons of David at that time? I'm just throwing a question that you might get. So I'm just saying, somebody, what does that mean? They were all the people
prophesied that he was going to come from the loins, seed of David, according to the flesh.
See, somebody that don't have understanding the Bible, and this is why, like I said, it was taught up with it, and this is why you have to understand who will be saying this. you wouldn't get like, why the heck does the son of David got to do with anything? What he's doing? Why you correlate to that the son of David? But no, somebody would understand and know exactly what you're saying when you say son of David. You saying this is the one that the prophet's been talking about that was going to come from the seed of David. That's him. So that's what they're saying. Is this the son of David? All the stuff he do, he healing the blind and the dumb. This got to be the son of David. This got to be the Messiah that was prophesied about. That's what they're saying. Okay, so when you see son of David, he had to come through the loins of David. So that's why it's a reference point. So they're bringing that acknowledgement of this. This is the guy in Isaiah that's talking about the spirit going to be on and everything. So it's bringing that to the forefront for the people. Okay, so if you see that, that's what it is. But yes, there are sons of David, right? Joseph, through lineage of David, we had plenty of people. It was Jews, right? Judah, Benjamin, Levi. So there's a lot of them sons of David that was there. But when they're talking about it in the scriptures, it's specifying to the Messiah. They're talking about it in that sense. All right. Yeah, verse 24, we're going to go into something else. So we will wait and we'll keep that for next week. Is that all right? Sound good? Okay. I don't want to rush. Like I said, we still got 20-something verses left. So you'll be here for another hour, 2 hours. All right. So we will keep it there. All right. And we will pick back up on it next week. So this will give people the time and opportunity. If you want to read through it, grab some things out of it. You can do that as well. If you have some questions with it, even throughout the week, if you want to throw something out there to make sure we address a certain point, you can do that as well. All right. That's why sometimes, on the app we use, the WhatsApp, I'll throw out, what we're reading, what we have to do prior to the week that we're doing it. Okay. With that, beloved, say shalom.
You're the lion.